internets. So, hey man, how you been? What's the latest in this crazy Black Mirror episode called Life?
You know, the usual, just getting out there, reading the crazy stories around the world, and trying to day trade, meme stocks these days because I hear that's the way to make a living these in 2021.
Oh, awesome. Let me know what you're investing in so I can definitely not invest in that because that then I can guarantee to make some money. But I've actually been thinking about something which is kind of interesting. I had a conversation with a LinkedIn representative today because I'm running some ads on LinkedIn. And just getting the pulse of like what he feels the most, because I made this beautiful trailer for this film for this company I'm working for, and it looks really great. And he kind of let me down because he says, well, people are really responding to like almost like a selfie with just like a blurred picture with like a quote, and the more raw the better. So I was really kind of going over like how I'm doing content these days. So I would like to find out from an expert who does content all the time, kind of what the next thing is. Like, what's the future of content? What do you think of that idea?
I love it. And we could just what is Andros doing wrong and what is he doing very wrong? We can really point to the two distinctions between what you're doing wrong and what you're doing very wrong and really find out the difference.
Are you talking about just in general in my life, or just like in as far as my work goes, or just like, the podcast? Because those are three separate conversations, and some of those will take way too long. And
exactly, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I'll need to do mushrooms to really get to the heart of some of that. Well, let's bring on our expert right after we do our little theme songy, huh?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andros Sturgeon,
and I'm Justin Womack.
And we are the Marketing Geeks. Yes, welcome to the show, everybody. I am so happy that we are together again, the Marketing Geeks. Justin, why don't you introduce our guest tonight? I would love to know more about him.
Yes. Tonight we are with the founder of Content Cucumber, Chris Chasteen, and Chris leads the mission to grow his company Content Cucumber, which is a marketing sales in the areas of marketing, sales, and finance, which are his primary expertise zones. And he also runs an e-commerce company called Silicone Depot, where he sells things like caulking supplies and those kind of products. He has a gift for coming up with creative new approaches, and in a stroke of genius, his employees call it idea mode when he's in the zone, kind of like, I guess, Steve Jobs in his reality distortion field. He gets in that zone and creates entirely new products, new things. He also excels at fostering an environment that allows everyone on the team to be creative and voice their opinions, which is unique among entrepreneurs and leaders these days. So please welcome to the show, Chris Chasteen. How are you, Chris?
Hey, thank you for having me. Nice intro. I don't think I wrote that, but it's very good. Very flattering.
Yes. It's awesome to have you on the show. And we talked a little bit before we hit the record button about Content Cucumber and kind of what you're doing over there. But can you tell the listeners, just give them a synopsis of exactly what Content Cucumber is as a software and kind of what you provide as a service for anyone that goes there to create content?
Yeah, sure. So with Content Cucumber, what we provide to our clients is the ability to get writing on demand. So essentially, when you sign up for Content Cucumber, you get access to a dedicated writer, and you can make as many writing requests as you'd like. And that same writer will be with you through thick and thin to write exactly what you need.
So who are some of the people that are going to be coming to you and using this? Obviously, the ones that are going to stick out to me are people running blogs, anyone running perhaps even like an affiliate site that wants to drive traffic for making affiliate sales. And in general, any business owner can create content around their brand or business. Is there a specific like area or niche that comes commonly to Content Cucumber that you tend to serve, or like who are the people that you're working with right now?
Yeah, so it really depends. The beginning, I focused on e-commerce companies.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a lot of product descriptions and a lot of blogs that discussed products and answered questions. And now, I mean, we have pretty much everything you've mentioned. We have, some percentage of those companies. We have digital, marketing agencies even who use us to help scale their operations and provide content to their clients. And then we have, people in the e-commerce space, people in the services industry, anyone who needs to attract visitors to their website on the internet is a good client for us. So it's a pretty wide variety.
And what would you say is the biggest benefit of having a dedicated writer kind of on your staff on demand as needed by working with your company? I mean, is it the search engine benefits because you're going to be ranking higher in Google with more content, especially with the kind of way that Google is evolving their algorithms? Or is it just the fact that or what do you see as the key benefit to having kind of like a regular content creation schedule for a business? Why do people need you? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So to grow your business, I mean, the more you're talking about answering questions for whomever will buy your product, the more you'll stay in their mind. And sometimes if you get the content marketing game really well, then you'll even answer questions that don't necessarily relate directly to your product, but relate to the people who use your product. So John Deere does a really good job of this, for example. I always love using John Deere as an example because they seem like such an old industry, such an old way of doing things. And yet it's the thing that I say, it's like, well, if John Deere can do it, then like you can do it too. Like your company isn't too boring because they make tractors and yet they'll talk about like farming techniques or something that really has nothing to do directly with their product, but it's very interesting to the people who use their product. And so that's where I think content marketing can be super powerful.
Awesome. Andres, real quick, before we continue here, can you hit the record button for thank you.
Good idea.
But we're recording on the stream, so we have all the audio from the stream, just to clarify for everyone watching the live, but I wanted to get the better audio quality for the rest of the podcast here. So there we go. I'll cut this part out probably, maybe leave it in. We'll see how it goes. But that is interesting. And I do think that, obviously the more content you create and the more you're looking at the analytics on the back end of the website and seeing where people are engaging with your content, you can kind of figure out who they are. And then you'll be able to answer those questions. Like you said, that they're not necessarily asking, or they're not necessarily directly tied to your industry, but they're questions that those people have because you know your target market so well. One of the things we like to do on this show, though, is before we go a little bit deeper on how content is going to serve businesses, is talk about you a little more. I want to hear more about your story, kind of how you got into the whole content marketing space, or how you got into the marketing business world in general. So tell us a little bit about like how did you get into this internet marketing? And also you mentioned that your company is 100% virtual even before the pandemic, as Andres and myself have pretty much been that way as well. But tell us exactly like how you got into this, how you got started. Like tell us your journey.
Yeah, sure. So it started way back when I went to help start an e-commerce company. So there's a family business that I went to. Actually, my dad started his company back in the 70s selling silicone. He was in a rock band and they used silicone sealants to build all their stage props because they built their own stage gear, so their own lights, their own speakers, PAs, everything. And so he decided he would go ahead and start selling the silicone because he knew that product so well. And fast forward way into the future after I was born, I decided that company would benefit from an e-commerce company because that is just that business is a very old world business. It's all like paper POs being faxed in. And I was like, well, man, the e-commerce is the way to go, like digital revolution. This is what we need to do. And so when I started
better than fax, are you sure?
Yeah, I think so. We're still, we're not certain, but yeah, it's close,
Jury's still out. We'll check back in 10 years. We'll check back in 10
years.
That.
So, when I started, we were lucky to see like 10 orders in a month or something. It was like a pet project. And now we get like, at the very least 10 orders a day. I mean, that would be a slow day.
One of our listeners, who's actually a guest on our one of our past shows, Payman Nilfarouche, asked, "How do you determine what you charge for content? Like, what's your pricing schedule?"
Yeah. So when we went out and we looked at what everyone was charging for content, and then we just took the average of what you could get. And yeah, that's kind of how we came up with our pricing. I mean, I know that's probably not super satisfactory, but it's kind of what we did.
So you looked around the internet at what the competitors were doing and kind of found a zone and kind of went in the middle kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, well, let's not be outrageously expensive, but we're also not going to compete with like writer access in the Philippines or something, because we're hiring like US writers and stuff. So there's just some people we just can't compete with. And what we're selling is really the access to a dedicated writer who will be along with your marketing journey the whole way.
And on that note, so coming back to this, coming back to Content Cucumber and the way that you structure the business, I want to talk about the way that you find these writers, because you are actually providing a business with a writer that's going to work for them for an extended period of time. I mean, once they start a contract with your company, they're working with the same writer for the extent of their deal. I imagine, as long as that writer remains available. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear. So how are you finding these writers? How many of them are kind of like on staff, and then like what's your screening process like to qualify like who's ready to become a writer for Content Cucumber?
Yeah. So that's the magic of Content Cucumber right there. What you just discussed is what we have gotten down to a science. We recruit through looking at people from universities. We look on Indeed. I think Indeed might be the most popular way we find people. But we've also kind of just built up a reputation to where when we post something on Indeed, we get like hundreds of applicants. And then we have excellent editors that go through and they pick the best writers and then interview them. And I think they end up hiring somewhere between 5 and 10% of the people that they interview. And I say they because I really am not too involved on that side of the business. That's the operations side of the business. But that is the big piece of our business that we're doing is recruiting and hiring writers.
Now,
yeah, that's kind of good.
I have the website up here right now, and it's pretty cool from the standpoint of, very simple. It just says need content in green, get a demo, see pricing, and then there's a video, and the video of you is very funny. It's it looks. I love the style of it and the way that it's and you can see it over at contentcucumber.com. But so what I'm curious about is, first of all, how did you like when you started this endeavor, what was what were you doing before you started? Was it like, were you doing like freelance stuff? I mean, how does one put together an agency, and how many people do you have working for you? So what was your path to making this happen?
Yeah. So in the very, very beginning, when I was growing the e-commerce company, mostly I was doing ads, PPC, all that. I was gaming the Google ads back when they were 5 cents a click and stuff.
Back when they were gameable.
Yeah. And well, content marketing, it just became more and more necessary. And the way to get content was just so arduous. And I was like, well, I really want this way where I could just pay a monthly fee and ask a writer to produce whatever I want them to produce and not have to like worry about rate shopping or worry about like going to find the Upwork writer that I used last time. And, all that stuff was just not fun. So I rang up my friend Isaac, who I went to college with back in the day, and we actually did like stand up together and a bunch of other crazy projects. And he was the lead writer of an agency, and so I just convinced him to quit doing that and start a company with me. I was like, well, we have one customer, so there's a starting ground. And then he pretty much was the first writer and editor, and I was the like growth, sales, marketing person. And then Sam, his brother, joined in and built the website and the technology and made everything like work. So it's a really good trio.
So when you say the technology, what is like the user experience look like? If I were to go to Content Cucumber, go for like a demo, can you kind of walk me through what someone can expect?
Sure. Yeah. It's a lot like submitting a form or something. You know, you have the buttons at the top, and one of them says make new request. When you click that, you can make a new request. And then you just put in your topic and what type of content it is from a drop down. It's a pretty simple form. We try to make it as easy as possible. So as few steps as possible. So there's not a lot to it, but we do that on purpose.
And then what is the like the content actually look like? Do you have like a certain style or niche that you are specifically using on a regular basis? Like break that down for me if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it's very, very different. So like for a cannabis company in Colorado, the content's going to be completely different from them than for a nursing home in Florida. So like
you should just hook them up like as a business. Like those old people definitely cannabis can help. Yeah.
I know that it's not legal in Florida yet, but you know, we'll
who knows?
Yeah, so so anyhow, so a lot of that comes down to actually on one of our onboarding questions is from a scale from 1 to 10, how fact-based or how fun-based do you want your content to be? 1 being super fact-based and 10 being really fun. And it's like a 10 is like almost no research and mostly humor. And a 1 is like a ton of research and no humor at all. So we actually do kind of clarify that. And then we have different writers. Like we have some writers who are outstanding at technical stuff, and then some writers that are amazing at the humorous stuff. So we can do both.
Got it. And so what kind of content are we talking about? Is it video or articles? And then
it's all writing. Right now our service only provides writing for now.
And then do you also walk through the process of what to do with that content once it's written? Like what's the next steps for the end user?
So a lot of the people that I deal with are already in the stage at which they have decided that they need content. So they've already decided like, I need content marketing to reduce my ad spend or to increase my organic reach. So a lot of times they already have a goal in mind, but you bring up a great point, and which could be an entire rant about creating content for people from the very start of their journey and first learning about content marketing to getting a Content Cucumber account. And I think that could be extraordinarily interesting, and doing a series like that where, you know, almost like a Neil Patel series or Seth Godin series of just like, you know, here's step 1 through 1,000. And, you know, you're probably around step 490 when you're ready to sign up for Content Cucumber.
So what do you see as most of the people that hire Content Cucumber, how frequently are they putting out content and how long would it take someone, let's say if they are starting mostly from scratch, like maybe they have a blog, but it's not been active for a while, something like that. Like, let's say they want to re-engage their blog and re-engage a strategy to drive organic traffic. What's the timetable to realistically start seeing results from approaching a content marketing strategy, and kind of what's the frequency that you recommend in terms of posting new content to a website?
Yeah, and when you say from scratch, do you mean that they're having 0 visitors, or you mean that they have visitors but they're all paid ads visitors?
No, I mean, well, okay, they could either have paid ad visitors or a small amount of organic traffic. It's not 0 visitors, so they're going to have, let's say they have 1,000 people that regularly come a month, so they have some organic traffic, but not like a significant amount. And now they want to, but they have a blog that hasn't been active in a while, so now they want to re-engage. They've tried content, abandoned it, and now they want to re-engage with it. And I'm trying to get an idea of what kind of a timetable they're going to be looking at to start seeing a jump in the numbers again.
Yeah, so if you're let's say you post once a week, you're going to see maybe 3 to 6 months is about the timeline you'll see for someone who already has some traffic. Now, someone who has no traffic and it's a brand new website, it's going to take a year before you see much traffic, and unless you get published by like the Huffington Post or something, then you'll see a ton more.
So unless you catch a break with PR or some sort of viral stunt,
or pay for it, or ads,
or pay for it,
of course.
Which we have people who do that. They're like, no, we have funding. We're going to pay a bunch of money for ads, and we actually want you to write sponsored content. And we're like, yeah, well, we can do that too.
So as far as like that goes, the sponsored content, and somebody do you also provide a service where you help them with like SEO with the content? Like if adding certain elements to it or keywords or long tail phrases that you think might edge the content better in an organic search?
So there's kind of two ways to answer that. One, there's a brand new product that we're launching where we take care of absolutely everything. And I can get into that a little bit, but just from the basics of how we write, we try to write as naturally as possible and write things that people actually want to read. And that form of writing is what Google is ultimately going to try to get traffic to. So like the more Google tries to, like their entire goal is when you search something on Google that they find the absolutely best answer for that query. So with that in mind, that's usually how we're going to stay up with the newest SEO trends, is just make sure that the reader will get a satisfactory answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, but I guess what I'm asking is, let's say that you have a client that comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to do like my nursing home blog or piece of content." Would you just write the content and hand it to them, or would you also provide as part of that a service where you said, "Well, hey, I don't know if you know this, but this particular phrase for your particular industry, you might be able to leverage. So if we wrote that into this piece of content, it might help." Do you have those discussions, or is that something that you don't handle at that point?
So for the regular, like just our standard account, we don't really do too much of like the SEO strategy stuff. We pretty much write content. We do SEO best practices in the content we write. But what you're talking about, a little more deep on the strategy side, we're actually currently in the process of launching a new product called Hands Off. And that would be for someone who's coming to us and saying, I know content marketing is great. I don't want to mess with it. Kind of like hiring a PPC agency or something. They're like, just like do it, just make it work. And that's all I want you to do. And that's pretty much hands off.
And I see that that's actually listed on your website now. You kind of, you're advertising for it already.
Yep.
So if you're going back, like kind of the difference between like the on demand versus the hands off, if you have the on demand and you do your own keyword research, I mean, can I provide one of your writers with like a few words I want included in an article, and then is it mainly my responsibility to then come up with the topics and then I hand that to the writer writes the article? Let me just get clear that's kind of how it works with
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And we have people who use Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever, and they'll send their reports to the writer, and the writer will write based on those reports. So our writers are very familiar with anyone who's really geeks out on SEO. They love our service because they can just, be like, well, here's, I want a 1,216 word article and I want you to use these semantically related keywords. And
nice.
I want you to talk about they can really go all in on it, and our writer will totally accommodate.
And I really believe that all of SEO is moving towards content. I think the entire thing is going to be about content. It's all about, user experience is a better term.
Yeah.
But the content creates a better user experience if you're addressing if somebody visits your website and you're providing an answer for a question they asked, or providing value to something they want to find more information about, you're going to rank higher. And I think, and I see a slow move away from like the value of backlinks. I think they'll remain some point. They will have some value, like the more important ones. But
it depends on who is. If it's the New York Times, it's always going to be useful.
It's going to have value. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, obviously, we've already moved away from the old backlink strategy of just get 10 million fake ones, and and then you're good. But
the Bangladeshi click farm is going out of style.
Payman Nilfarouche wants to know what verticals and industries do you cover?
So we have written for nearly every industry, as long as we're not prescribing something or we're not having to write about something that's never been invented before, we can write about it. So if it's like, this is a new invention and no one knows anything about it but me, and there's no content about it at all, then we can't write that. But if it's like a pen is a great example. We can totally write anything about that.
So you mentioned cannabis. So you're able to do cannabis. What about like crypto? Because crypto's another one that's kind of
we have several
touchy.
Yep.
And then like as far as red tape industries go, I mean, when you like financial planners have a lot of red tape around what you can and can't say, at least from a sales standpoint. I mean, have you worked with like people like that?
Yeah, we've worked with people in the mortgage industry and some bigger names too. I don't,
You don't
I
have to
don't
mention
know.
them.
Yeah.
Right.
So
We'll just assume the very biggest name
the
right now.
best
That's it.
ones, whatever
Yeah.
your favorite one is, you particularly,
him.
that's the one.
Or her.
The one you read. That's the one. So yeah, anyway, yeah, we navigate some of those. In the mortgage industry is similar, right? Like you have to be careful about what you say, because with the FHA or something, there's a very particular way to help inform people on how to utilize those government assisted programs for buying that first home and all that. So we do have to navigate some of that.
How do you, because you said you're mostly in charge of like client acquisition. How do you, what kind of systems do you use to get new clients? Like what kind of outreach do you do? Do you mostly like, you said you run some ads. So can you kind of break down how you're advertising for the service?
Sure. Yeah. From a big perspective, I would say our secret weapon is our marketing team, is the people on the team. That's really the secret weapon, is all the people on the team. And but the actual tactics that we employ is I'll come up with a really creative idea with Connor, who's my video guy, and we'll kind of just riff and actually do a presentation on our method, which we called the Scrappy method. Which is a method of creating content that is that exact type of content that you were talking about that performs well. Mm-hmm. It's kind of scrappy. So, and that's kind of the vibe we're going through. So we use our Scrappy method. We come up with kind of a really raw, just iPhone shot footage, and we try to convey the message. And then we do an advertisement campaign on Facebook or LinkedIn. And a lot of how we attract people is to offer them a free blog.
That's smart. That's a good one. That's actually a lot, but that's also takes some actual value from you. It's not or it takes time. It's not one of those, free PDFs or something that you're giving out, but that's pretty cool that you do that.
We have that too. We have the content cookbook as well. It's not quite as effective as the free sample though.
Yeah, for
I would
sure.
imagine not. But you mentioned also that you were running LinkedIn ads earlier in this, and I wanted to hear a little bit about how you're leveraging LinkedIn ads, because I have a lot less experience in LinkedIn. I've run a few ad campaigns on LinkedIn, but I do predominantly I run Facebook traffic when I run ads. And so when you're doing LinkedIn, like what are you finding success with? Are you running like traffic ads? Are you running just for impressions and just going for building exposure, or what do you see the best results with in terms of the objectives that you're using on LinkedIn?
So, our goal is to convert people into. We've tried different, so it depends on where they're at, right? So like at the top, what we're trying to get them to do is fill out the form. So a conversion is what we're aiming for. But then towards the bottom, we're trying to get them to click to go to a calendar. So then it's a click. And then, we've tried the view as well for certain sales and things like that. So we've tried different objectives for different ad campaigns. I think that the conversion is the most interesting for lead gen, because their lead gen stuff is pretty interesting. So I think that's probably one of the more interesting ones.
And it's the conversion. Is it like Facebook conversions now? Because I haven't run LinkedIn traffic for at least a year.
Yeah. So they have their own form, right? So like you click it and it would autofill some of your info on there already.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So you since you have like this overview of the types of content that hit and that those that don't, what do you see as far as like the trends, moving into the future? This is what I'm most interested in. Where do you see like the future of content? Like what do you see hitting most? What are people most attracted to these days? And where do you think it's going moving forward?
So I think that we're going to see a lot more audio, a lot more video. I think you're going to see more mixed media. I think there's going to be audio is going to become more and more powerful as devices like Alexa become more popular. We may in a few years even have a service where we'll start translating your blogs into audio content for you, which would be a good end goal. Because the end goal for our company is to be the best content marketing company on the internet, to help you empower your content marketing. And that's starting with writing, which is, the majority of organic marketing right now. All the algorithms are really well written for writing. Even the YouTube algorithm, a lot of it is based on what's in your description. And then it uses how many views you get and how long people watch the video. But eventually the algorithms are going to get really good at watching and listening to the actual content and ranking things based on the best video or the best audio, not just the best like descriptions or what gets the most likes.
Yeah. So are you, do you have some sort of structure as far as like when you have a client that wants some content and you give it to the writer? Is there like do you have like kind of a certain type of method or structure that each of these pieces of content should follow?
Yes, so they do have those guidelines. Anytime we onboard a writer, we have like a bunch of materials that we go through on how we format our blogs, how the research should be done, what type of links that you should be mentioning in your resources. Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty comprehensive guide of how to write a good blog.
And so do you have any information that you could like pass to some of our listeners? Like what would, if somebody wanted to follow that winning structure, what would you tell them?
So, I guess the content cookbook goes over some of this stuff, so I'd check that out. But also, just like the more readable it is and the more interesting it is to read, the better it is. And I know that sounds like super simplified, but that it comes down to that. Like when you're done reading it, just think to yourself, would I read this? And if the answer is no, then write it until you would. And I know that's ultra simplified, but that is ultimately what it comes down to.
I think that every time I write my own name, I'm just like, I don't even read it.
That might be a different issue, though. I don't know if that has to... I don't think I'm licensed to help you with that one.
Our previous guest, who has been commenting on the chat with Andros there, he runs a company that did content intelligence essentially, and so they were looking at like optimizing for how people are engaging with content and how and look from everything from I think like heat maps and how long people spend on the page and those kind of things. And have you found anything that in the way that you write content that tends to enhance the user experience or enhance how long someone stays on? I know you just kind of mentioned a second ago that just by using a voice that is readable and that people can enjoy reading is one of those things. But is there anything else that you've kind of seen as far as like, or have you seen any that's made you rethink any way that you do content or write content?
Well, we try to avoid walls of texts for the most part. I think if you open up a blog and it's just a huge wall of text without bullet points or being broken up. So it does actually have something to do with it being aesthetically pleasing in its format and structure, which we talk about and how we do that. So that is part of it.
So yeah, sub headlines and bullet points and things like that. And that thing for email as well, because I do a lot of email copywriting. So yes, you never want a long blurb of any text. Most of my emails are like single sentence space, those kind of things. So
yeah,
makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much just if it looks good and you would read it, then it will probably perform better. And I know those are like super simplified, but I do like to keep things as simple as I can.
And for those of you who are listening, we'll put a link to the content cookbook. I also just somebody Content Cucumber actually on our Facebook live stream put the link, so I put it on LinkedIn as well. So if you see the stream,
and we'll have it in the show notes. Yeah, and it's on the bottom of the page for Content Cucumber. I found it. I was just checking it out a second ago. So
yeah. So like as far as COVID has gone, have you seen any shift in your business? I mean, as far as content, but also just getting clients. Like, how's that been for you?
Yeah, so COVID was a very interesting animal for us. I mean, anyone we had in the restaurant or like travel space just gone, like immediately, which I think that's completely that's how it was for everyone, So any clients we had in either of those spaces did very poorly. But, I'll be honest, we were sitting there and we were having massive churn. And it wasn't looking good. Like, it was looking pretty dire. Like, we were kind of like, all right, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to start like getting some government assistance and laying people off? And like, what are we going to do? And we just decided, let's just try to grow this business as fast as possible, because I think I read or heard somewhere that like 12% of businesses are still growing. And like, Purell and, Kleenex, they were doing great. So it's just like, okay, well, we need to find the Lysols and Purells and Kleenex and people who are doing really well. And that's who we need to sell to. And that's pretty much what we did. And we actually grew our staff and we grew our ads, and we kind of just doubled down. And it paid off because I think we tripled the company since COVID started.
Doesn't surprise me.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, because COVID, I mean, when it first started, the same kind of conversations were going around, and I had many conversations about like how serious, like what does this mean exactly? Like the stories that were coming out were like there's not going to be food on the grocery shelves, and like the situation sounded much dire than what actually transpired.
Well, there wasn't toilet paper. That actually did.
Well,
happen.
there was. It was just being hoarded by like clever investors who,
Clever investors. Is that some of your investment advice?
Yeah, I mean, toilet paper and GameStop.
That's exactly when I stopped listening to Justin, was when I had a garage full of toilet paper. And
they have about the same intrinsic value, those two. So I go invest in both of them and then just wait till the price inflates.
Just wait. Just wait until someone shorts toilet paper.
So you and how many people are on your staff right now, would you say?
So in our Slack channel, it's confusing the answer because we have a lot of part-time and a lot of full-time. In our Slack channel, there's about 65 people, which like a good chunk of that is part-time writers. So writers who might only deal with 1 or 2 clients. And I'd say probably about 10 are like full-time staffers out of all of them.
So looking back at now that you're running your company, it's you're getting clients, you're obviously making a living, but looking back, if you could go back in time and tell yourself some key advice in the building of the business, what mistakes did you make? What would you avoid? What would you tell yourself? Start
running ads immediately. Don't wait. That's what I would have told myself. That's the only piece of advice actually I would have given, because everything else I think went okay. And I enjoyed the journey I was on. So I don't know that I would change too much other than that.
And are ads now your biggest driver for customer acquisition?
100%. It's 100% of our driver. Well, except for organic marketing, which is about 20%.
I'm sure there's a little bit of word of mouth too.
Yeah.
What about podcasts like this one? This will be
good. That's part of that organic piece, right? So, I guess it went from a paid standpoint, 100% of our paid advertising was conferences. We didn't do any ads at all. We only did conferences. And so we'd get a few customers from organic marketing, like word of mouth and our blog and stuff like that, just talking about ourselves, the same strategy that we're selling to everyone else. And then we'd have a conference and we get a ton of clients, and then we just maintain that.
Were you sponsoring conferences, or were you just guerrilla marketing conferences and just showing up and then doing your thing?
No, we had a booth. We would have a booth. We actually had a big castle, a Lego castle, with lights on it, and we'd always be doing something special like music and lights and wearing pencil costumes and giving out ice cream.
And when you started Content Cucumber, how many years had you been running the e-commerce business, the Silicone Depot? How many years had you been doing that before you started this? And what did you learn from that business that you brought over to this one?
Probably 4 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. I learned a lot of skills about marketing specifically. It's just like how to sales. Like sales is probably the most underrated skill for an entrepreneur is probably sales.
Yeah. It's pretty important. And so with even with Silicone Depot, were your sales also there primarily driven by ads? And then were there any conversations involved with those ads or with those sales? Because you just mentioned that sales skills are important. Were you having to have like dialogues with customers before they bought, or like what did that look like?
Yeah, so large customers, like someone who's like, I'm gonna buy $10,000 worth of material, like they're not just gonna click buy on the site, like they want to talk to someone. But someone who's gonna buy like $300 worth of material, like they'll just click buy. They're not gonna really like worry about talking to someone. So it just depends on who it was. Those larger customers definitely took some sales skills.
How did you acquire any of the larger ones? Were those were those ads, or how did those kind of people find you, like enterprise level?
So Yeah, probably organic content and ads, both actually, because I mean, what happened was like we were paying for all of our traffic through Google product, and then we started the content side with Content Cucumber, which reduced our need to spend ads by nearly $12,000 a month, because it made up for such a large efficiency, and there's so many keywords that we didn't have to pay for advertisement for anymore.
Just because of the way you were leveraging.
You're still running both companies, right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. So is there room for a third one in 2021 or 2022? Or
I hope not. No, I don't think so. I think two is plenty.
So, do you do most of your advertising on LinkedIn, or do you still use Google AdWords as well, or Google Display Ads?
So with Silicone Depot, it's like mostly Google with retargeting on other platforms, and then Content Cucumber is mostly LinkedIn with. Well, I don't think we're running retargeting on any other platform right now, but we probably should be.
Are you? Do you see also the way that your advertising has shifted? Have you had to be more nimble with the types of advertising and targeting that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, the ads are so much different than organic, and that's part of the reason I like organic is because if you do it really well, it will perform over time. And then it's just kind of like put in the reps and do it consistently. Whereas with ads, it's like it can change so much faster, and there's so many just patterns and things to keep out for. So there's a lot of
Apple can make a change to their privacy settings and all that.
Yeah, I mean there is so much more to navigate with advertising than with organic content. That's part of the reason why I love organic content. Really,
with ads, I got to ask real quick with ads, because last year I ran a lot of ads, but again on Facebook with my primary medium or platform. Did you see a huge discount on the ads in the early pandemic phase? Like, because we were getting huge numbers on ads all of a sudden in like April, May, June of 2020. And then the numbers started to drop again as we got later into the year and now entering into 2021 because the competition, I think people came back on the platform and competition returned. But did you see anything like that? Because I was getting some of my best results ever in those months running ad campaigns. I'm just kind of curious if you had a similar experience.
So kind of, but to be completely honest, I wouldn't really know because we didn't even start running ads until April. Okay. Like we had never ran ads in the entire history of the company until COVID started. We just relied on conferences, and then it was like, well, conferences aren't happening ever again, so you got to figure something else out. Yeah. But June was excellent. We had an amazing June. I do know that.
Okay.
And the ads that you run specifically through LinkedIn, is there a particular like ad type that you find has just performed better through time, or do you vary it? Like how does that work for you?
Video is our primary ad driver.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And do you have like metrics on those videos too? Is there a certain type of content that you create that people seem to respond to as far as video ads go?
Well, I mean, if it's fun and kind of funny and quick and easy to understand and explains the concept, then it tends to do well. Okay,
cool. So where do you predict, like, as people come back to work, do you think that the type of advertising that you're doing is going to be more relevant? And also, and I'm also including kind of the rift between Facebook and Apple as far as like how content is being done. How do you see the content creation / advertising landscape looking like in the next like couple of years?
Well, I think that advertising will continue to be more competitive as larger companies begin to put more faith in digital advertising. So I think that if you're a smaller startup or a smaller player and you have large companies as competitors, you should be advertising right now, because you will not be able to advertise once your large Fortune 500 companies decide to start spending unlimited amount of money on whatever it is that you do.
Once they make that connection.
Once Charles Schwab decides to take over NerdWallet is gone. They don't exist anymore. Like,
So they make the connection that fax machines and sending purchase orders through faxes are not as efficient as using the internet too. So once they discover this, the game will change. So.
very much so. I mean, I think that the large companies, I mean, I was seeing, I was watching something about marketing. It was like still over half of their ads. Some of the Fortune 500 companies are like magazines and TV commercials and all those kind of things. And I was like, man.
Radio?
and radio and stuff like that. But now it's like they're like, oh well, let's think about podcasts and let's think about stuff like that. So it is changing.
Do you think like Facebook is still relevant as far as advertising goes?
Yeah, I mean, there's still billions of users. I mean, pretty much the principles of marketing haven't changed, which is just like, where are the people who want your stuff hanging out, and go be where they're hanging out. That's those principles haven't really changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird because I also feel that on some level, Facebook is not quite as effective as it used to be. But I've been
organic. Yeah. It's like, not at all.
for sure. And
there is no organic.
Yeah. And no. I've been definitely playing with different types of messaging and advertising and kind of what's been rising to the surface has been surprising to me, specifically, because I always came from the school of thought that you create like really polished content. People want to see professionalism. They're used to it now. And now it's almost like a detractor. If you do something that's too polished, people go, oh, that's an ad. Yeah. I want to skip it. So, it's almost like on some level, because now we have the world of Reddit where, people just want to be entertained. And I kind of feel on one level like, I got to like make something not like a little bit poopy, not quite as like, awesome. and so I don't know. It's like not dumbing it down. You still got to be clever with the tools, but the craftsmanship that goes into making like a piece of art it seems to be disappearing. And
it takes a craftsman's touch to make something look like it's less polished, Andres. Think of it that
well,
way.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're driving at. I do, I really do. But I think that I would take a slightly different position because I think that you can have elements of both and they can be successful. Like if you're just like really genuine and you're authentic and you're just like, hey, what's up? I'm Andros. I made this thing. This is really cool. I think you're going to like it. I hope you're going to like it. We'll see. I don't know. And then you like show some of the stuff. Then they're going to be like, okay, well now I know this dude and let's check out what he's got going on. And then they'll be more interested in the super hyper well-produced stuff. But it's kind of similar to like auto-tune or something. Like, yeah, it sounds good. It's perfect pitch. Like it literally is perfect. But that's not what people liked about 70s rock and roll.
Yeah.
Or like, it isn't the perfect, it's like robot music it's technically better, but it's not as good as listening, I think, to like a band or live music.
I'm going to play you a Yoko Ono album and you're going to totally disagree with what you just said.
Well, that's different. That's the musician. That's not the medium.
No, I get what you're saying. Well, it's all fascinating.
Real quick, I got to ask though, because we're talking about platforms that are driving traffic, and the one that I'm seeing that's driving massive free traffic is Clubhouse right now.
Yep.
And the this movement on social audio.
Yep.
Are you have any take on where that's going? Or
yeah, I mean that's the future. Yeah, that's definitely the future. I don't think it'll be Clubhouse. I think Clubhouse. Sorry, Clubhouse, but I think they're kind of like the MySpace of that type of thing. And so we just don't know who the TikTok is. Like we won't know until we know who the Facebook is.
Mark Cuban's launching one called Fireside later this year. Twitter has Twitter Spaces that's already in beta. Yeah, I think there's probably more coming too. Who knows? Facebook will probably have their clone. So there'll be, and once that happens too, it's also there's gonna be so many different options. It'll spread out the traffic. So yeah, things will change. I agree. So I just wanted to hear your take.
It's going to be like a small company from like Finland or something. It's someone we've never heard of.
You know exactly who it is?
It's going to be someone you've never heard of before. I don't think it's going to be some huge player.
Not Mark Cuban. Okay.
We better get on it, man. I think we.
Sorry, Mark Cuban.
We need to come up with the next thing because I want some of that internet money.
Yeah, I mean it
GameStop,
it
man.
is
Go invest in GameStop. It's free money. It's definitely going up.
free money in
It's definitely going up.
GameStop.
There's no risk. There's no way it goes down.
Oh man.
The
Oh,
company,
no.
it's worth $5 a share, like by normal metrics, but these aren't normal metrics. These are
It's a
Yeah,
2021.
it's a strange frontier. Well, Chris, where can people find you, connect with you, know more about Audio Cucumber? Give us a rundown.
Audio Cucumber. That's new.
I'm sorry.
Content.
You just
That's-
invented our platform.
Oh, is that the Finland
I'm
company?
gonna
right there?
take it. I'm gonna take it.
That's you just invented it right there.
What
Yeah,
we're
no.
gonna do is we're gonna make it so all cucumbers are wireless, and you can do a podcast from any cucumber.
Buying the domain right now.
And they're only like 60 cents a pop, you know? I mean, cucumbers are cheap.
Yeah, man, this is the next big thing. So content cucumber. Where can we find you? Know more about you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so I mean, contentcucumber.com. We're also on pretty much every social network. So I think pretty much everything is whatever the company is.com/contentcucumber.
Okay.
And what's the best way for somebody to get started with you? Like, just book a demo or go to the website. What's the best path forward?
Yeah, so you can always chat with a specialist if you want to like narrow down what type of content you're looking for. And you can sign up directly on the website too if you're like, I love this and I want to write it right away. You can just check that out on contentcucumber.com.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So before we go, we always like to ask our guests about what they're most geeky about. So what are you into these days that's not work related? TV show, movie, puzzle, whatever?
Man, that's a good one. I think I got really into like playing board games a bit.
Which ones?
So I guess like Ticket to Ride and Splendor and Planet and
I learned Catan for the first time.
that's a good one.
ever.
Settlers of Catan. Yeah, that's a good one.
Just started playing that one like a couple months ago. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
I never played
that's a
before.
good one.
Then. Yeah.
I just bought my son. He's 6, but he loves games, and I just bought him the Pandemic Cthulhu game because he's way into.
Oh my
Cthulhu.
gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm still learning the game dynamics. It's a little complicated, but my son who's 6. He's really into like Cthulhu and the ancient ones. I've been reading him a little. Well, not reading him Lovecraft. I'm not a monster, but he loves like the symbology of it. So when he saw that game, he's like, "Papa, I want to play that game with you." So I just got him that, but we haven't played it. So board games is your jam.
I think so. That or jamming. You said jam. That's
Yeah.
what made me think jamming.
What about anything you're watching? Any movies? Any TV shows? Anything like that?
Mostly like I play a lot of music. Like I play piano a lot and play in a band.
Any books?
I mean business books, you know.
What do you got? Though? Name one. Give us one to take home with us.
One business book. Oh man. That's a lot of pressure. Shoe Dog, probably Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Oh, I just read that last year for the first. That's amazing book, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect from it. That's the founder. So that's the story of Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. And
Yeah.
it's quite a story. And that's a great entrepreneur book.
So well written. It's so well written. I think
I
he had
gotta
some
check that out.
ghostwriters on that. It's such a good book.
It's like it's written like almost like a thriller in some sense. It's
It's
a great,
so
great,
good.
great book. Yeah.
It's so good. And I love the last chapter too. That really just made me super excited for my future.
I gotta check that out. Justin, what are you into right now?
Besides meme stocks, I guess I'm still into WandaVision. We got one more week of that show. That's the only show I've been watching right now, and a season finale is coming up in 2 days here
wow.
from when recording this. It's quite good. It's quite good.
I
It
cannot wait
started
to
off
see
kind
it.
of weird, but it got really good. I like it.
I'm forcing the producer of the show, aka my wife Iris, to watch the Marvel movies, and she is begrudgingly doing it. But
So how many are left? Because there's like 26 of them or something. Plus,
yeah, we're
how
up
many
to-
more till you get caught up?
We just watched Ant-Man and Black Panther. So she's digging it,
good,
you
man.
know. But
You're in like 2016 territory now. I think,
yeah,
27?
yeah. Slowly but surely, we're working our way up. But I've got two geek things that I'm into this week. One is on Amazon Prime for you Black Mirror fans who are jonesing for Black Mirror. It's like Black Mirror Light, but it's still very sweet. It's a show called Soulmates. I highly recommend it. It's what happens when they find the soul molecule and they're able to match soulmates to one another. And it's like, it ends up being the most disruptive technology.
Wasn't that an actual episode of Black Mirror first? Like, kind of, like, I believe there was an episode like exactly like that. And then
Sort
they
of. It
kind
was like more like an app, but I think some of the
Yeah,
producers
yeah.
of Black Mirror worked on the show because they
Yeah.
want to keep working and
loosely an idea that came from Black Mirror. Makes sense.
yeah. And the guy who runs the show Black Mirror, he's not able to think of any ideas now because everything's just so depressing. So
I saw they
we
canceled.
entered an episode of Black Mirror, and then he was like, "Uh-oh."
yeah, it's been the most interactive episode of Black Mirror ever.
That's all this has been, actually.
Yeah, Banderdash
Yeah,
has
yeah.
nothing on this. So
You want to
I
talk
saw,
about
I
VR?
saw that
This is
they canceled the
massive.
they canceled the Twilight Zone, the Jordan Peele reboot Twilight Zone. That got canceled. It wasn't as good as Black Mirror. It had its moments though. There were a few decent ones in that mix. I watched all of them.
I still gotta
and
see
most
it.
of them were bad.
And then I just finished this book, and it's like this is like way old school, and it's kind of bananas, but I had a good time with it. It's called Diary of a Dope Fiend, or Diary of a Drug Fiend, and it's Aleister Crowley. And for those of you who don't know who Aleister Crowley is, who was a occultist in the turn of the century. And there was a lot of occultism as people were moving away from traditional religions, kind of like now. But he wrote this book about a guy who was a World War I hero who ended up getting hooked on cocaine because all these guys came back from the war and they were just giving out cocaine and heroin because they were like, hey, it's this new drug. It seems to work great. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, people are addicted. That sucks. So it's semi-autobiographical, and it's about how he has a lot of money and he goes into Paris and is just doing massive amounts of cocaine and heroin with his wife, and they're going to these parties and they end up like trying to open up a portal to bring the devil through at one point, and it's like
So things got a little weird there. They got a little weird right there.
they got out of hand pretty fast. So anyway,
I think my favorite
I
story
can-
of bringing drugs into America, that has to be one we talked about how the U.S. government brought in like all of the LSD in the 1960s or whatever because they mistyped like instead of grams or micrograms, they typed grams instead of micrograms or something, and then ended up with like tons of it, and then just they were like 99% responsible for the entire LSD, if we'll call it, epidemic in the 60s, and we talked about that on in an episode with Chase Hughes like a year ago.
good times.
Yeah, actually, someone recommended that I take LSD before the show. I did not,
No,
but
you should have microdosed at the very minimum. It would have.
yeah, they said that. And I was like, I'm just gonna start like yelling obscenities if I tried that.
Nah, you'll be
That,
fine.
that's usually what our guests do. It's kind of strange that you're not. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're like, I think there's connection issues. You just mute me. You're like, okay, moving on.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We, really great having you as a guest. Go check out Content Cucumber. Don't check out Audio Cucumber because I'm gonna buy that shit and I'm gonna like open it up as a, don't get them.
As a Clubhouse clone.
That's right. Don't get
Or
them.
Clubhouse Clone. That's another name. then.
Clubhouseclone.com. Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. Buy two. We got, man, we're going to be poor. Spending all my money on domains.
So for those of you who are watching the show live, thank you for watching. Please go to the Marketing Geeks podcast page and follow us. You can see whenever we post anything live, or you can follow me or Justin. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your time. Leave a review, and even if you think we suck, that's okay. You're in good company. And we are going to stop the live stream now, but just hang on if you don't mind, Chris, for just one more second. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. And Justin?